I don't think there's any team getting talked about more right now than the Golden State Warriors, and for good reason. In a span of 5 years, they went from putting together the best regular season we've ever seen, to having the worst record in the league and landing the second overall pick, to now sitting again with a top record, looking to make another run at the title, and they've got a pretty decent chance to do so. So let's take a look at everything that's happened. Today our sponsor Prize Picks is back. It's really changed my NBA viewing experience lately for the better. It's a player prop platform that is legal in most US states, and it's super simple to use. They give you a bunch of these different lines for certain players, and you just choose the over or the under. For example, we've got a huge slate tonight, and after looking at everything, I decided to go with the Lou Dort over on points, the over on Seth Curry's points, and the over on Nikola Jokic threes. If all three of these happen, I'm going to get 5 times my entry. I can throw in another one and actually get 10 times. It's available on your computer or mobile device, both Android and iPhone. I've gotten some of my friends playing Prize Picks, and it's been a lot of fun just bouncing picks back and forth and trying to best each other. If you guys want to play along, just go down to the link in the description and use code Jimmer, and they're actually going to give you a deposit match up to $100, which is insane. That's practically a free $100. Thank you Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. To see how we've gotten to where we are today, I think we need to start by going back to 2009.
With the 7th pick in the 2009 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Stephen Curry from Davidson College.
The Warriors were in a weird spot back then. They didn't really have a direction. They had a mix of solid veterans, such as Steven Jackson and Jamal Crawford, as well as a young emerging guard Monte Ellis. They finished as a 10 seed in the Western Conference with just 29 wins. That 2009 draft was an interesting one, headlined by dominant Oklahoma freshman Blake Griffin, 7'3" giant out of UConn Hasheem Thabeet, and Arizona State guard James Harden. Now Curry was well known coming in, it was hard not to be. He was a son of Del Curry that as a junior at Davidson was destroying his competition, averaging 29 points, shooting 40% from 3 on 10 attempts a game, with range we had never seen, as well. JimmerRange was just a couple years away. But while he was a fan favorite going into that draft, scouts weren't giving him that same respect. In a time in the NBA where there weren't that many oversized point guards, Chris Paul, Darren Williams, and Tony Parker were some of the top in the league, people decided to get overly critical of his 6'3" skinny frame. Blinded by his faults as a defender and his recent transition to the position, his generational shooting ability went overlooked. 4 picks into the draft, and he hadn't heard his name called. Really no surprise there. We hadn't seen a point guard come off the board, and he wasn't even considered the top in the class. Now what would happen next is going to be looked back at as one of, if not the biggest mistake in the draft we've ever seen. The Minnesota Timberwolves held back-to-back selections, the 5th and 6th picks. Looking for a point guard, they decided to make a rarely seen decision and take 2 of them with their selections. Athletic freak out of Syracuse Johnny Flynn and foreign sensation Ricky Rubio. Flynn would play a whopping 3 seasons in the league, and well, we all know Ricky Rubio. Curry would get off to a decent start, quickly making the Timberwolves regret their draft night decisions. By his second season, he was averaging 19 and 6, shooting 44% from 3. At this point, the Warriors were still far from the dynasty we've come to know. Monte Ellis was their best player, averaging 24 a game. The team would finish with 36 wins, but that offseason, they would make another key decision that would define their future. They held the 11th overall pick in the 2011 draft, a draft that has gone down as one of the best we've ever seen, with the likes of Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, and Jimmy Butler. At 11, right after we saw college superstars Kemba Walker and JimmerRange come off the board, the Warriors decided to go with some 6'7" shooting guard from Washington State, Klay Thompson. An extremely overlooked prospect considering the fact that as a junior, he showcased his ability as a perimeter defender while averaging 21 points as a knockdown 3-point shooter. While that 2012 season for the Warriors didn't seem like a productive or important season in really any respect, it was absolutely massive for what would happen in years to come. Curry would be in and out all season due to various ankle and foot injuries, playing a pretty unimpressive 23 games. Klay looked as advertised, averaging 12 points, shooting 41% from 3, and the Warriors decided to make a massive deal at the trade deadline, headlined by the Warriors sending Monte Ellis to the Bucks and getting back Andrew Bogut. That following offseason would also end up being huge. The Warriors held the 7th overall pick in the draft and decided to go with North Carolina small forward Harrison Barnes, a selection that's proven to be solid, but that wasn't the player that defined that draft for them. In the 2nd round, with the 35th pick, they decided to get some 4-year, undersized, not super athletically gifted power forward out of Michigan State, Draymond Green. Their successful offseason didn't stop there though. After an injury-riddled season for Curry that caused some long-term concerns, they were able to extend his rookie contract for just 4 years, $44 million. The 2013 season was really where things started to come together. The Splash Brothers had arrived. Curry was averaging 23, shooting 45% from 3. Klay was averaging 17, shooting 40% from 3. They finished as a 6th seed in the Western Conference and even made it to the second round of the playoffs, but this was still far from the team we've come to know. Guys like Carl Landry and Jarrett Jack were key contributors, and guys like Barnes and Draymond weren't. That offseason, the only significant change they made was bringing in Andre Iguodala on a 4-year deal, so we saw a pretty similar season. Again finishing as a 6th seed, but this time falling short in the first round. That offseason, it became clear they were on the brink of something special, but maybe Mark Jackson wasn't the guy. So they decided to let him go and bring in Steve Kerr. This is when the dynasty really started. They would finish with 67 wins, good enough for the best record in the league, led by the MVP, Stephen Curry, who was now averaging 24-8, shooting 44% from 3. Klay Thompson was now among the league's elite shooting guards and was one of the best three-point threats we've ever seen. He averaged 22 points, shooting 44% from 3. And Draymond had cemented himself as a top defender. They would take down the LeBron James-led Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals, and there was no stopping them going into the 2016 season. Curry would go to a new level, averaging over 30 points a game, becoming the first ever unanimous MVP. Draymond took a leap. He was now one of the best playmaking bigs, averaging 14, 7, and 10, and he also took a jump as a defender and brought home his first Defensive Player of the Year. Their first rounder from 2012, Harrison Barnes, was now a solid starter. The consistency of this team was almost uncomparable. They would end up putting together the best regular season of all time, finishing with a record of 73-9. But with so much effort put into the regular season, they had a tough journey ahead in the playoffs. They ended up running up against Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and the Oklahoma City Thunder during the Western Conference Finals, and would actually fall down 3-1, but ended up making the comeback, advancing to the finals to once again play the Cavaliers, but this time, they had a healthy Kyrie and Kevin Love. They went up 3-1 in the series, all things pointed to them bringing home back-to-back titles, but then this happened.
Tip taken by Spades, final seconds, it's over, it's over!
Cleveland, this is for you!
You won 2 titles, why does this one feel different?
I'm home.
Despite the Warriors displaying absolute dominance during the regular season due to key timing of their contracts, such as Curry signing following some injury struggles, they actually had money to spend. And somehow, some way, we had this.
Stephen A., the news again coming in moments ago, Kevin Durant heading to the Golden State Warriors. How are you?
Now at this point, having 2 of the best three-point shooters we've ever seen, one of them being an MVP, having the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, and now adding one of the greatest scorers of all time, Kevin Durant, the league stood no chance. They won back-to-back titles. It was hard to say how long this could go for, but all things fell apart in 2019. They dominated most of the regular season, they dominated most of the playoffs. There was only one thing stopping them from winning their 4th title in 5 years: injuries, and man, were there a lot. Curry dislocated his finger, Klay tore his ACL, and Kevin Durant came back way too early from a calf strain and ended up tearing his Achilles. Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors were gifted an NBA title. The Warriors were in a whole different situation now. Kevin Durant was a free agent, and he actually decided to go to Brooklyn. Klay Thompson was going to miss the whole season. The only thing that even made things interesting is the fact that they managed to bring in D'Angelo Russell via a sign and trade from the Brooklyn Nets, who was fresh off his first All-Star appearance. The season was a disaster. Curry dealt with injuries, only playing 5 games, Draymond just 33, and due to their situation, at the deadline, they decided to make a huge trade and trade D'Angelo Russell to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Andrew Wiggins and their 2021 first-round pick. The Warriors would finish with the worst record, managing just 15 wins, which was good enough to land them the 2nd overall pick in the draft. At the time, Anthony Edwards felt like the right selection if they were going to make one, but it was looking like he was going 1st overall. I think it's safe to say making a trade for a more win-now player featuring that 2nd overall pick, or trading it for future draft assets to keep their trade possibilities alive, made the most sense. But that's not what they decided to do. With LaMelo on the board at 2, they decided to go with 7-foot center James Wiseman. There was a lot of excitement going into that next season, mainly due to the fact that it appeared both Curry and Klay were returning, and this time, they were going to be joined by a top 3 pick. But the excitement would come to a crashing halt, when in a pickup game during the offseason, Klay would tear his Achilles, again causing him to miss the entire upcoming season. This changed the outlook completely. The rotation was ugly. Wiseman would have a pretty disappointing year given the draft capital associated. His defensive struggles had him in and out of the starting unit. But there were still some exciting takeaways. Curry showed everyone he was far from done. He averaged a career-high 32 points, shooting 44% from 3 on nearly 13 attempts a game. Absolutely insane, and he almost single-handedly brought them into the playoffs, but they fell short in the play-in game against the Lakers. Andrew Wiggins had a revival to his career, buying into the Warriors offense and finally showing some resemblance of the defender we thought he was going to be coming out of college. So now things got exciting. Curry was playing better than ever. Andrew Wiggins looked like a steal. Klay was coming back at some point in the season, and they now held 2 lottery picks in the 2021 draft. Those selections would end up becoming the 7th and 14th picks, which they decided to use on Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. The only other notable moves they made this offseason was signing Otto Porter and Bjelica. Now, the expectations for the Warriors were all over the place going into the season, but I think everyone was excited to see what they would do. That excitement would go to a new level when Jordan Poole, their first rounder from 2019, decided to go nuclear in the preseason, something that a lot of people felt put them in a whole different situation, giving them another offensive threat and a possible 6th man once Klay returns, and to some degree, that's been the case. As of the time I'm recording this, the Warriors are the top seed in the NBA with a record of 18-2. Curry is now the heavy MVP favorite, averaging 28, 7, and 6, shooting 42% from 3 on over 13 attempts a game. Andrew Wiggins is playing the best basketball of his life, averaging 19 points, shooting 50% from the field, and 37% from 3. Jordan Poole is averaging 18 points, shooting 45% from the field. Draymond is still bringing this team a top-end defender and playmaker. They've built an extremely solid rotation with guys like Otto Porter, Damian Lee, Kevon Looney, Andre Iguodala, Bjelica, and even diamonds in the rough such as Gary Payton Jr. Like his father, he's made a name for himself on the back of his defense. He won Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year in college. He went undrafted in 2016, bounced around the G League, but this past season was able to win G League Defensive Player of the Year. This year, he landed a contract with the Warriors, and he seized on that opportunity. He's been the defensive player as expected. He's filled his time with highlights, and he's been insanely efficient. He's played 16 games so far with an average of around 16 minutes, where he's averaged 7 points, shooting 71% from the field. His role is just getting bigger and bigger, and giving this team just another scary piece in the rotation. Now, we haven't gotten to see much from their rookies, but that's just another reason that we haven't seen this team's full potential. Both Moody and Kuminga have close to no role at all, something that could definitely change as the season goes on, but it really doesn't have to. All this success, and their second best player, and the second overall pick from a season ago, still haven't taken the court. Both have ramped up their activities. Reportedly, Klay Thompson is already participating in full team practices. It's looking like they're going to start their comeback in the G League, then return to the main roster, which could be as soon as Christmas. And all I'm saying is we need to get ready. The Nets still sit with by far the top odds to win the title at plus 240. We don't know if Kyrie is coming back. What we do know is that Klay is, and the Warriors are at just plus 700. I don't understand that at all. I have a gut feeling this is going to be a special year for Golden State.